Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and welcome to another episode of Fanalysis, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I am Retty4, this is GreyJedi91.
Hello.
This is EvanNever95.
I solemnly swear I am up to no good.
And this is Jenserai1.
Did you see his face? Did you see his scar?
Which leads us into the chapter, Matt. Give us a summary for it.
This is Chapter 8, The Potions Master. This is Harry having like his first sort of interactions with his teachers and his classes, and a fateful meeting with the Potions Master, Severus Snape, his favorite teacher.
Everyone's favorite teacher.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's get into this.
Yeah, well, the chapter opens, as Connor just said there, with a nice little kind of dialogue chain. Another kind of different written method that we've not seen in the book yet, or at least not as heavily focused on. I really like how she uses these kind of new, different, interesting methods to kind of reel you in different ways at the starts, at the heads and closes of these chapters. It kind of bigs up the intrigue of how everyone's perceiving Harry, and because it's going to be a persistent thing throughout the books, and this is what an interesting way of kind of bringing us into that and having it be like a new first time experience for him outside of the stuff he'd had in Diagon Alley.
Mm-hmm.
I like his reaction to it as well. Like he wish he wouldn't do it. He wish they wouldn't do that. He's trying to get to class. It's more like it's an obstacle for him rather than like, oh god, it's such a burden that I have to carry at this point in his life.
Yeah. The thing is, like, it definitely comes to be really annoying, like, as the series goes on, where it happens constantly. But for now, you can totally understand why the people are doing that, It's like, this boy or whatever, he got rid of the Dark, Lord or whatever. Like, he's, everybody, and it would be natural to be fascinated by him. They're not treating him like an object yet, the way they sometimes do later on. It's genuine curiosity.
And it comes across as that. It comes across as just eager students go, oh, have you got a glimpse? Where is he? And he's just kind of like head down, blinkers full on, eyes forward. It's a nice little introduction to that, because this is the first time that the entire student body is coming interaction with him. So it needs to be said, at this point in the story, and she does it interestingly, and then it ties it to the intro to the chapter. So it's just a bit of prose that I enjoyed. But yeah, that leads us straight into...
So it starts out explaining like the insanity of the architecture. We have, staircases, chains, corridors that lead to nowhere, doors that lead to different places on Fridays, crazy stuff like that.
Yes, yeah, I love the kind of quaint quirkiness of the castle.
Yeah. This is also our first major introduction to Filch.
Yes, yeah, it kind of goes through a montage of all of the different key features that you need to note as a first year student kind of entering their first term, followed up with the kind of introduction to the staff and the classes, and Filch is the first example of the staff members. Another great example of a character that's introduced as being kind of encapsulated in his first introduction. The way they talk about him is like it's everyone's dream to give Mrs. Norris a swift kick.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy, it doesn't really reveal this until later on. I mean, it doesn't really reveal this until later on, but Filch is like, I guess early on in his career, he was allowed to torture the students down in the dungeon somewhere. So, yeah, I mean, he's definitely operating... Yeah, he's operating in a limited capacity these days, but it's like he only keeps working here for the faint hope that one day he'll be allowed to resume those duties.
Yeah, he's really not a good person.
No, he's an embittered person, for reasons we learn in the next book.
Yeah, one thing I will say is that I at least admire Filch for the love and appreciation that he has for his cat.
See, I'm not surprised you say that because you're a cat person. Like the thing that I mildly respect about Filch is this could be ignorance and not knowing what he's up against, but I think it does take a certain amount of balls to do what he does. Like he's literally helping the teachers search for Sirius Black, supposedly dangerous murderer and great wizard, when he could do nothing against Sirius if he encountered him. But he's like a fairly brave person, it seems, or at least has an attachment to the school or something. There's something driving this,
I mean, if nothing else, he has the passion and ability to take on the horrific scale of just a task that it would be to clean that place. Hogwarts, cleaning the entire castle with all of these kids, with all of these kids putting all the stupid pranks and bloody magic that he can't do, and it's like, God, get the stupid, he's literally scrubbing clean everything that they mess up. I mean, with the bloody paint, blood on the walls in the next book, just.
And I just love
Crazy.
that image
He's
from
dedicated.
the 7. I just love that image from from Harry Potter 7 Part 2 at the end,
Yeah.
where he's basically got his push broom and is trying to sweep up the rubble, but it's like, dude, you're not
this.
making
Getting too old for
any
this
head-
shit.
But he just keeps at it because it's
He's
like,
determined.
what the hell else is he gonna do? It's like he's the sort of person who is like, I know what I'm doing is pointless. I will never succeed. But what else am I going to do?
I think
One
in
wonders if he
his
would have been a
internal monologue
Hufflepuff.
that should have been like this is the sign. Like by that sign shall I know it. Like, fuck this. You know, like you know, like it's done.
He's
But,
groundskeeper Willie from The Simpsons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, and he's not even groundskeeper, so it's even funnier.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah,
So the first class we get is herbology.
Oh, wait.
with Professor
The mention of Harry and Ron almost accidentally entering the third floor
me
corridor,
too.
getting
Yes.
found out by Filch, and then getting rescued by Professor Quirrell, who just happens to be passing.
Yes,
Yeah, it's a
yeah,
nice
God.
detail. Yeah.
I like that. It's such because that's a perfect example of a subtle
What a
foreshadowing
coincidence.
that you would never pick up on if you had no idea that he was obviously the one to watch for. But if you do, it's that's clever. You know, it's the perfect example of that kind of writing technique, I guess. Whatever.
And it's like I guess the idea is like Voldemort's like, psst, go look inside there. See what's in there. What's in there? It's a 3-headed dog. What? It's just like, oh. Have to manipulate
Dumbledore.
Hagrid now.
Yeah, that's the funniest thing. It's like what he couldn't just do something about that. You know, it's like, I have to work out how to put this thing to sleep. I guess
Yeah.
I'll sit here and play the play the harp. It's like what?
Showing around Hogwarts trying to figure out how to do this. This plan only takes 7 months. That's fine. Yeah.
This isn't the case of just walking in and immediately going straight down. I mean, he broke into Gringotts, but whatever. It's amusing on that level. But yeah, so the next one, as you said, Evan, is herbology. The next kind of
Professor
staff
Sprout, head of
member.
Hufflepuff.
Sprout.
Mm-hmm.
And we get like kind of they blend the discussion of the classes with the kind of description of the grounds as well, because obviously we go to the greenhouses first,
Yeah.
so you kind of it's painting a subtle picture in your background before everything gets properly fleshed out, the rough outline of what you're expecting to see in your head, and then putting that alongside the introduction of the characters with Sprout, who's kind of
Again, I really like the film's portrayal of the greenhouse.
Oh yes,
I thought they did a great job with that.
Actress for Sprout did a very good job as well. She's again another
She's
example of
hilarious,
just
yeah.
completely
Yeah.
No,
encapsulating the
she
character.
nailed it. Absolutely.
And he's not
Oh,
even that
God.
significant character, but she just
Yeah,
still
exactly, yeah.
bled straight off the pages.
I'm sorry, but whenever I think of that actress, all I think about is her interview on the Graham Norton show a few years ago, where she talked about meeting Laurence Olivier and creaming her knickers.
Oh God! Why would you give us that image? Oh,
Thanks a lot.
thanks for that. It's like the one clip of Graham Norton
No,
I haven't seen
I'm
in my
done.
life, and I
Wait, please tell me he didn't mean that for real. Like, come on, this has got to be a joke.
he'll be back
Evan?
in 3, 2, 1. There we go. Not far off. I was half a second off. Anyway, God. Anyway, leading from that
History of
horrific
magic.
visual and whatever, leads us into the history of magic next.
Yes,
then.
with Professor Binns,
It seems
ghost
to me
teacher.
that Professor Binns's class seems to me to be the perfect class where you just wish you had magical headphones that no one could see. You just listen to music and read your textbook and ignore the lecturer. Because
Again, what's interesting about this is like we talked about this in a previous chapter, but it's like, you know how we've all had a McGonagall who's like strict but fair teacher. We've all had a Binns who's boring as hell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the economics teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the
exactly.
funny thing is, you wouldn't even need to have the headphones be invisible because he just completely
doesn't care.
oblivious.
Yeah.
You could literally just
Yeah.
do anything and he wouldn't care.
I like that it's noted later on, like when they're studying for like owls or whatever, that like sometimes he's talking about these crazy events like Goblin Wars or whatever, and Harry's like, it notes that Harry listened just enough to appreciate that in another teacher's hands, this might have been interesting.
Yeah.
But it's just his style. It's not even the subject. It's just the way that he teaches or just reads lectures, whatever, is terrible.
Yeah.
Do got to give him credit though. You got to be pretty dedicated to your craft to continue
seems-
teaching.
Which
in
is weird because the way
afterlife.
it's described, it's almost like an accidental ghost. When later on, it's established that you have to specifically choose that. You know.
I know.
You know, in the case of Professor Binns, that actually kind of makes a little bit of sense, though, because the impression I have is that this is a guy who is insanely knowledgeable, but is very stuck in his routine to the point where even death doesn't free him from it. Because it's like he just unconsciously chooses to become a ghost because he died in his sleep because routine. Got to get back to work, got to get back to the classroom, got to read my next lecture. And it's like, it just doesn't even register to him that he's dead. Even when he realizes he's a ghost, it's like, okay, well, no need to open doors anymore.
If indeed you ever realise this, this could be on autopilot the entire time. Oh god, isn't that depressing? But yeah, that's Binns.
For
Moving
all
on,
eternity.
yeah, moving on to a far more interesting and engaging teacher in Flitwick. He's another one of the fun teachers. Not quite good on discipline, can't command a class as fully as anyone else, but at the same time, he's still engaging as a teacher and not too much of a problem for learning.
Yeah.
I
And the
always
thing
kind of
is-
liked him to yaddle.
Yeah, sure. I guess. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And it's another
It's
little
kind of-
instance
No, I don't mean
of-
just because he's small, but I meant like mannerisms.
No,
and, like,
I
you
know.
the
I
way
get what
he
you mean.
teaches.
I get what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just an amusing visual.
And the I
They get
will
along
say
really
that-
well.
Yep. In the films, I do find the character redesign halfway through the series a bit jarring, but it's another instance where Warwick Davis just owns the role because
Yeah, the redesign was always like really weird. It's like, what the hell? Did someone just completely take a scissors to your head?
I actually thought it was just a completely different character for the longest time. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
In fact, even Warwick Davis himself said that he figured that Professor Flitwick from film 3 on was probably a relative of the original Professor Flitwick, and it's like original Flitwick retired, his nephew came in and took over the job.
That's
Okay.
brilliant. That's amusing.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes more sense than the ridiculousness of just becoming a completely different character, pretty much. Yeah, that was something from the redesigns that I never fully got behind. I feel like consistency could have been preserved on that one.
Especially when we get to Harry Potter 6, and Harry's like, Professor Flitwick, you've known me for 6 years. But the character changed radically between the first 2 movies and 3 on, and it's supposed to be a different character. Harry should be saying, you've known me for 4 years.
Yeah, but yeah, that's definitely one thing that they changed in the film that I wasn't massively appreciative of. At least in the later ones. But yeah, in the books he's just presented as that kind teacher who's just like, oh, he gets excited because Harry's there and falls off his literal stack of books
With the squeak.
Yeah, which then leads us into the next teacher and class.
McGonagall.
That would be McGonagall.
My favorite, personally, definitely my favorite teacher. Don't know about you guys.
Well, easily. Hello.
I would agree
Definitely.
with that.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
only competition she has is Lupin, as far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
and even that, I still choose her. But
She's,
but yeah,
she's the quintessential teacher. Everyone wants a McGonagall in their life.
Yep. Because it's like even if her classes are, she's the sort of teacher that you won't necessarily like, but you are guaranteed to respect. Which it's very, very, very important to have a teacher like that somewhere in your curriculum. The one person that you
Makes
will
all
always,
the difference.
Yeah, the one person you will always recognize as an authority figure.
and I personally would like her, but I agree that one wouldn't have to necessarily. They'd still be able to learn from her, though. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely
And
would like her as well.
that's what I mean. That's why I pick her as my favorite. Like in a way, even Imposter Moody is an insanely effective teacher. He's just not at all my favorite.
Yeah.
It's regarding Imposter Moody, I almost get the impression that Barty Crouch Jr. missed his calling. He should have become a teacher instead of a Death Eater. He would have been so much happier.
Oh God. Yeah,
If nothing else, he would have had a much happier life. So
Jesus. But yeah, so that's
we're also introduced to the art of transfiguration and how it's described as one of the most difficult forms of magic.
yes, yeah. It's kind of used as a demonstration of how magic isn't just waving your wand in the air and making some magic words and bam, Bob's your uncle. It's actually an art form, and requires discipline and learning, and Transfiguration is an excellent example of how that works because of the difficulty involved. You can't just wave your wand and, oh look, this massive cabinet is now, I don't know, an elephant. It's really difficult to make even the smallest thing transform, to the point that even Hermione can't do it first time. She managed to get a little bit of a change with the silver and
with the
pointiness.
match,
with the matchsticks, but she can't complete it fully. So it shows you right there. Even someone who can get something like, for example, the levitation charm pretty much immediately, she can't get this advanced level of magic done. And she also gets small smile out of McGonagall, which I appreciated.
Yeah, there's even kind of like a mathematical element to it. Like I think they even introduced, like in the later books, like the actual formula for transfiguration. Yeah. I don't remember how it goes though.
Oh, would you?
They certainly give a formula in potions. I'm not sure about transfiguration.
I don't think they do in transfiguration.
It might have been in one of the guides. Now that I think about it, but I know it exists.
Oh, I would like to comment on the first transfiguration class as depicted in the movie. Could you imagine McGonagall's face if we were late? Cat transforms. It's McGonagall. Oh shit! And for me, one of my favorite little jokes I've always made with my friends is that after McGonagall says, perhaps I could transform one of you into a pocket watch so one of you could be on time. I always joked how if I was in that scene, I would respond with the Lord of the Rings quote, "A wizard is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to."
Yeah, that's a quick way to lose points and get detention.
That would immediately get followed up by you getting
That would immediately get be a single focusing shot on McGonagall's stone face, and it would smash cut to you, just like the worst kind of detention.
It would just cut to like lines like, "I can be late.
Yeah.
I am." It's like,
But the thing, it's one of those areas where my cheek overrides my common sense, and I'd just be sitting there doing my lines and just thinking,
time is valuable. I will not waste it, mine or others. For hours and hours. But so I'm glad they don't do that in the film. They do just sit down and put up with it.
So they have their class, and then we're taken to our first Defense Against the Dark Arts lesson with Quirrell, which Harry described as being fairly useless.
They're described as being a bit of a joke because he's clearly afraid, or he's portraying himself that way anyway. Like their impression of him, he's
everywhere.
I gotta wonder what Voldemort is doing during all of these classes. It's like, okay, Quirrell has to do his thing, pretend to be normal, teach his classes, but it's just like, oh god, I'm so bored.
But it's crazy. It's like they describe his garlic smell coming from his turban. It's
Wait a minute. Pleasant. I just remembered. Later in this.
You made a joke about that a while back, Matt. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I just remembered that later in this book, after it snows, the twins bewitch snowballs to like Quirrell's head, and he and that's Voldemort. Like, are you serious right now? How the mighty have fallen, huh?
I love that visual. Yeah, it's brilliant.
One random ass detail from the movie that I actually enjoy is that the one time in the movie where we see Quirrell in his classroom, he's just holding a lizard.
Yeah, he's like an iguana for some reason. Yeah,
he's just holding a freaking iguana.
He's like he grabbed like a normal creature. It's like, these are dark, right? They don't know what these are. This is a dark creature,
It's like, and when you actually stop and listen to what he's saying, and the vampire bat, it's like he's giving a lecture on vampire bats while holding an iguana. Okay,
context is key there, I think.
And just so anyone watching this knows, iguanas don't have anything to do with vampire bats.
I mean, I would hope you would be aware of that, but yes, in case you aren't. Good point, Evan.
Just saying.
Good to point that out. But anyway, that's the last of the teachers, right?
It's midnight. I'm a little loopy.
It's the last until the most relevant one.
Of course. I mean, of the montage. But
before we get to that, they're in the banquet hall again, and Harry gets a letter from Hagrid inviting him to tea afterwards.
Yes, we get that nice first postal scene where the owls come swooping through, and I like that it's almost in retrospect. Well, it is in retrospect because obviously this isn't the first time this has happened to Harry now, but it's our first introduction. And it's like, I remember when I was shocked by this, but now it's kind of common. Which I like because it presents it, even though it's magical and like, oh wow, this is brilliant. Yeah, it's like the quintessential example of a mundane event in the magical world. So presenting it as that, through that lens already for Harry is a nice kind of blend of the awe of seeing all of these owls in our heads swooping around, at the same time of, oh, it's just the post. You know, it's a nice little trick that she uses there, I think. As well as blended with the sadness, the fact that Harry will never get any post until now.
Yeah.
The bright light of Hagrid shines on everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So then he goes to Potions class.
Mm-hmm.
And has a grand time.
Yes, this is the well, it's the title of the chapter, so obviously it's me too. But
this is like the area where like I tend to forget about this. Like the movies, you do kind of see like this sort of dark, sort of anti-hero. There's this thing, like this other portrayal of Snape that's a little less layered, I guess, because he's not as ambiguously. He's sort of ambiguous. And in here, he's like actively unlikable for the longest time. Yeah. It's like I forget about that routinely until I go back to these early books where he's just like, even when you listen to the audio, like the audio books, his voice is just like, I'm the evil teacher.
Yeah,
and
Potter, you fool.
Yeah.
And the thing I find so interesting about this is the fact that at the end of the day, Harry didn't do anything to Snape. It was Snape who made Harry an enemy and Harry who responded.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, and in the movie, he's just sort of a little bit more commanding about it. Like he comes into the room and he's like, there'll be no foolish wand waving or silly incantations in this class. Yeah, he just swoops in.
And then this turn, like, pivot, silence, and like looks around.
Yeah. But in this, it's just like, Potter, it's like I'm going to make your life hell for the next hour. Yeah, right.
Yes. Bombards him with questions. He has no possible way of answering, and then
it just leads in with the book. Is like, Harry thought that Snape disliked him for some reason. It's like, no, Snape hated him. It's like leads in with that, and then we get smashed up to the kind of class, and now it is just this nightmare for him because. Beyond, we'll get to the ridiculousness of the stuff he says in a minute. But the first line, it's very important to note, I think, because not everyone knows this, although it's pretty common knowledge at this point. The first line Snape delivers to Harry, like ever, with the what is it called? What would I get if I mix powdered asphodel with an infusion of wormwood? I think that's the one. That in Victorian flower language means I bitterly regret Lily's death. That was something that was actually took the time to put into the prose, and no one ever would obviously get that, because why would you translate it into Victorian flower language? But that very first line that we get between him and Harry just cements the entire core of his character for the entire series, which I think is just an example of her genius as a writer and how she can just do these things. And no one picked up on it, or there's no one that broke the news, obviously, because it wasn't revealed until later after the series had ended that was a thing.
Of course, one thing I do find really interesting about the degree of Snape's spite is that he basically asks Harry this very direct question, knowing full well that there is no way that Harry could know the answer. Because guess what? Snape can use legitimacy to read your mind. He knows Harry doesn't know the answer, and yet he's making a show of humiliating him anyway because fuck you.
Yeah, and
that's why there's two sides to that coin. Like, on the one hand, he often looks him in the eye just to see Lily's eyes. On the other hand, he's casually, leading bits and pieces of what's going on behind those eyes in your mind a lot of the time.
Even
Harry, especially.
Even the description of them, as Harry notes it in this class, is it's the unlike Hagrid's, warm eyes, even though the same color of black. Snape's are dark, cold, empty, and they invoke the image of dark tunnels. That leads in with that idea of him, the piercing gaze that can just read you. Because it's often noted in the story that it almost feels like Snape can read your mind, and then later on it's confirmed that he can.
He basically can. Yeah,
it's an interesting blend.
And it's just the fact that for me, it's like that's kind of what makes Snape's issues with Harry all the more galling to me, because he can literally read Harry's thoughts. He knows Harry's thought process. He knows his emotional states at pretty much all times. Yet he's constantly equating him to James, because even though he can literally see the inside of Harry's head, he can't get past that face.
Which just, perfectly encapsulates his embittered nature and his fixation on the past, which kind of is his core as a character.
That's the big thing, is like he definitely does have like a really tragic past. He does have a lot going for him that does ultimately redeem him, but he's really irrational. like that's the thing. It's like and that's the part that's not really on screen. Like, you can forgive a lot of his flaws because he's rational most of the time. He's just cold. In here, he's nuts. You know.
Yeah.
Potter, why didn't you tell him about the quills? Point
That's
from
my favorite
Gryffindor.
one.
Yeah,
That's my
what the
favorite
hell
one.
is that?
Like Neville fucks up, and like he's like, you idiot. He's like, get him to the hospital. You Potter, like why didn't you tell him not to have the thought to make you look good? Did you? It's like are you insane?
What?
You know?
It's ridiculous.
And you've got to envision the faces on everyone else in that classroom aside from Malfoy, just going like, "What the fuck?" It's like, you Potter.
Yeah.
And it gets even better in this same book much later on, where he interferes in Quidditch as a referee.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Oh,
Are you,
God,
this grudge goes this deep?
Just the visual of him flying around on a broom. It's like,
Yeah, insane.
no, Snape cannot use a broom. It's just not right.
I forgot about that until I revisited this book. That's something I locked away, like in my memories. Like he was refereeing just to get at Harry. He was flying around in broad daylight on a broom for that purpose. Didn't he have
Not only
anything
was
better
he-
to do, Snape?
Not only was he flying around
Apparently
in
not.
broad daylight, but he was dressed in full green robes to show his support for Slytherin. So,
Oh, it gets
Yeah.
worse and worse.
Which is one of the few times he ever doesn't wear his black cloak.
yeah.
Interestingly.
rare
Yeah.
example of it.
Yeah.
It's just the vision. It just doesn't not mix with the rest of his character. But yeah, he's definitely one of those characters that suffers the kind of early whimsy of the series most, because it just does not blend with what we know of him, moving forward into the darker sort of era of the series, for sure. And this is just the hilarious prime example of that, and with the quills, and it's like, oh god, it's like, no, this is not something that fits with your future self. But that's kind of the potions class. I like the setting of the dungeon room. I like the kind of eerie, cold, dank feel it has, the atmosphere that she kind of lays out before Snape even enters the stage or enters the picture in that moment.
I like just the description of what he's capable of teaching you. It's
kind of
yeah,
enthralling.
I mean, as unlikable as he is, I do think I would pay a lot of attention in this class.
Yeah, it's an interesting class, and like I say, he's very enthralling with the way he kind of describes everything. Even though he personally, he has a passion for it, but he's not trying to get that across. He's not trying to get across his passion. It's just you can kind of feel it in the way he's kind of delivering the poignancy of his lines. He's like McGonagall. He does command a classroom for entirely different reasons. Obviously, it's less a respect, more of a mix of fear and just it's not worth it kind of thing. I can't stand up and be cheeky in this class because I'll just get hours of detention. It's not about a respect thing, but it has the same effect at the end of the day.
Yeah.
He has
I
that
do also
presence.
find-
And we were talking about this before we started, but the amount of points he takes away versus
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He actually takes a single point away at one point in here.
Yeah, twice.
Yeah.
Another
twice.
point from Gryffindor.
Yeah,
Does he?
yeah,
Okay.
it's two single points taken away from Harry for being just ugh.
Yeah.
Cheek, because
BFDs,
yeah,
Snape.
the introduction of Hermione's like knowledge monkey thing, which is just jumping up and down. Oh, please, pick me.
Oh.
I know it.
Knowledge monkey.
Yeah.
I've never heard it put that way
knowledge
before.
monkey.
Yeah, I was definitely one of those back in the day as a kid. I was somewhere at blend between Ron and Hermione as a student, completely lazy and
That's
disinterested
a
at one
strange-
day. And well, I
That's
know.
really strange.
That is
name.
I know.
interesting. Yeah.
completely disinterested and lazy in one way, but then when I knew something, it was like, oh god, sit down, boy.
Oh, just backtracking a bit to Snape's little diatribe about potions. The other thing I like about this is the fact that a lot of what he's saying, there's a lot of overlap with his love of the dark arts here, because a lot of the stuff he's describing could very easily be applied to the dark arts. And it says a lot about Snape's own character and his own interests and why he is what he is. Because when you find out about his background, basically, grew up as an abused child in a broken household, everything about him is all about rising above his situation and taking control for himself. It's like, well, that's where his obsession with both the dark arts and potions come from. He views them as means of exerting his own control, which,
Yeah, no, it makes sense for his background. And yeah, again, it's the fact that it all comes across in his first scene. This is his introductory scene, really, and she just perfectly encapsulates him from this moving forward. Again, with the exception of the whole extreme like weirdness and how it's like, Potter, you fool. Yes, that's consistent with the early books and not for the later. But apart from that, this is Snape. She does that. She always does that brilliant job of introducing exactly who they are from the very from the get go.
it's so interesting in that it's like this chapter, it's almost a bizarre combination of he bears his soul, he basically directly explains his core motivation, but he does so in a way with a lot of twists and turns where a lot of it is just speaking in riddles. Riddles in the dark.
I knew you were going to say that. I was just waiting for that. Oh, the visuals of Snake crawling over the floor. Ugh.
Gosh. Okay, so he finishes up the class, and then he goes to Hagrid's hut with Ron. Our first little introduction to Hagrid's hut, just outside the forest.
Another example of the layout of Hogwarts in my head is that the film presentation and book video game 2, Chamber of Secrets representation. That's how I visualize the hut. I don't place it halfway down a hill next, towards the lake. In my head, I place it just outside near the edge of the forest. In my mind,
I like the hyperbole that he's spent half my life chasing your twin brothers. So it's like they've only been here for 2 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say that didn't blend.
They're that persistent about it that he's out there like every goddamn day. It's like, oh, the eternal struggle.
But at the same time, he's got that kind of twinkle in his. It's not described, but the kind of twinkle in the eye perspective of it. It's like, oh, rapscallions. He's good about it. And you kind of get that he enjoys it. Because it's so kind of
has that, and he has that like another Weasley, huh?
Yeah.
When will they stop?
Also Fang.
Yes. Introduction Fang. Of Giant Fang. I forget how big he was supposed to be as well. I mean, I know they're kids' perspective, so it probably get smaller as they move on. But they say he's like a huge giant dog, and I visualized in my head this time reading Wolfhound. Yeah, this Boarhound, I think. This time reading it, I visualized him larger than I did in the past. Because I don't know why, I visualized him more of a giant dog, literally.
Like literally a giant dog to go with the giant man. It's like, oh, hey Hagrid, I see your pet horse with teeth.
Yeah, I mean, it's the fact that he was licking Ron's ears, so he must have been at least that big.
This is a small dog compared to his other one, though.
Oh yeah. He's no fluffy. But it's a homely scene. It's a lovely introduction of the hut because it will be one of those mainstay iconic set pieces for the series. It fits Hagrid's personality perfectly, and it's a nice little kind of recap of how the week's been going. It's a nice it's the end of the first week of Hogwarts, so Hagrid invites Harry over. It's just it's hard to describe how meaningful and necessary it is to the story, but Hagrid really is like a linchpin for me of the Hogwarts experience. Yeah.
I also like that it's like a small thing, but that he remembers and liked Charlie as a student because of the commonality they had in interests.
Yeah, with the animals.
Yeah.
Because Charlie is like the least explored brother overall, but he's still got a character,
He's always been used more of a plot device than a character piece. But it still shines through in what we know about him in the small moments that we do get.
He's just not around as often as the other ones are.
And it's worth commenting as well that Hagrid wasn't a teacher. Isn't a teacher now, so he wasn't a teacher back then with Charlie's there. So it's the fact
he wasn't a teacher.
Charlie had some.
He just liked him.
Yeah, he had at least some familiarity with Hagrid. So it's not just the gamekeeper to him.
It seems to me that Hagrid probably has his own little circle of student friends that he invites down to his hut for tea every now and again, and it's just like, well, my group of friends from that year have now left and graduated. Hey, first years, who's interested in big giant monsters?
Yeah, I definitely got the impression that happened. Yeah. Because like later on in book 4, when he wants to quit because of embarrassment from the news, and like Dumbledore mentions, like, do you know all the owls I've had of people saying they'd complain if I fired you? So like there's a lot of love for Hagrid, after people have left. Yeah.
And he's definitely one of those guys. Like, I had a caretaker in primary school who'd been there forever, and it was one of the people who actually lived on the grounds of the school because they had the house there for the cleaning, the keeper basically of the grounds. And it wasn't obviously as close as Hagrid, but it was always a mainstay. It's one of those people in the school environment where there's someone in the background always there, part of the school. So from a student's perspective, you have that kind of attachment. Just that's part of your school experience. You don't want that to be gone. It's part of the the environment itself, part of the school.
I don't know about you guys, but I think I'd rather be in Hagrid's little circle than Slughorn's.
Oh yeah, any day.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
Without question.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like Slughorn's Circle is the sort of thing that you want to get into if you're interested in social status or connections. But if you're not, he has nothing for you.
Yeah,
He's,
Slughorn's just a networking club kind of person.
He's perfectly tolerable on his own to me. He's not outright unlikable, but those parties would not be my thing.
No. But that's pretty much the end of the chapter. We get them.
Well, we also get a little thing with him mentioning Snape and.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We didn't talk about the actual point of that hut.
Which that's what they start making connections about, like the fact that the vault at Gringotts was robbed as well, and it starts like that plus the question about Snape, which Harry feels that Hagrid avoided answering him truthfully on that one.
Yeah.
And again, in an overall sense, we must I guess Hagrid must have known something about. Maybe he didn't know about the Lily thing, but he certainly would have known about the enmity between the Marauders and Snape. So that's probably what he's really thinking.
He was still keeper of the keys back then, so it's kind of something you forget. Hagrid was always a mainstay, even then, like that far back. It's sometimes you forget that's a thing.
It's like, and we, in retrospect, we know that that's what Hagrid's thinking about. But in the book, like Harry's thinking, oh, there's something really dark and creepy about Snape that Hagrid's not telling me because he's the red herring of this book. He's the evil teacher, right? Yeah.
She did a really good job of selling that in all the different kind of interactions with the characters. But yeah, those are the 2 points I put in the notes and completely forgot about. The avoiding of the eyes in both situations. This is the kind of point where Harry's detective mode truly kicks in. Is like, this meeting has given me more to think about than the entirety weeks of classes. And like, really, you're going to focus on this? This is the thing you're going to focus on? Is that? And yeah, that's exactly what it is, because he is the detective. That's his core. That's his passion. When he gets a secret in his head, it's like, okay, have to solve it. It's nothing to do with me, but I have to solve it.
I've discovered the plot line of this book.
Yeah,
just need to follow it. Yeah,
and he drags Hermione along with him on these wonderful journey.
I often forget how long it is before Hermione actually becomes like a friend of theirs, because she's totally not included in this at the moment.
Yeah, it's like almost the first term in the entirety, isn't it? She's just a background character until then. But then obviously fast friends when they do get in touch, because there are certain things you can't do without becoming friends.
And I think the other thing worth considering is the fact that once they actually do get to know Hermione and find out that, well, it's like different priorities aside, she shares their passion and their dedication.
Oh yeah, they're birds of a feather when it comes to who they are really, but they just don't know it yet.
Now and forever.
She's just socially awkward too. Like she's, they have a false impression of what she's really like, and part of that's her fault. Yeah. But she'll get it. She'll grow out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. They are 11-year-olds at this point. 11-year-olds in a very new world.
And that's actually one reason why I give the actors in the first Harry Potter movie a pass especially when I'm watching the Dom's Lost in Adaptation review of the Harry Potter series. It's like, in this movie, they're kids who can't act, and all I'm thinking is, dude, do you not remember?
I don't agree with that.
I disagree. Full stop.
Yeah, and it's like, the thing is that one of the reasons why watching the first movie was so relatable to me is because I totally felt that if I were in their positions, that's how I would act. That's what I would say. It's like that sort of thing to me as an 11-year-old seeing the movie was totally truthful. It's like, this is what 11-year-old kids are like. It's like they're trying to come off as smarter than they are, saying things that they shouldn't understand and often don't.
Yeah, kids are awkward and overcompensate and over-exaggerate their speech and overreact to things purposely to get a rise out of that. I mean, kids are cringy to watch.
Especially me, because it has to be 11-year-old.
It's cringy to remember, just looking back in the past and thinking, oh God, why did you do that? Why did you do that?
Yeah.
It's one reason why I actually don't feel much nostalgia for my childhood, because I spend all of my time ruminating on my mistakes instead of thinking about the good things, because I'm very, very self-critical.
I've always been a look-backer. Primary school, I was always looking back at the youngest years of that. Secondary school, I was always looking back at primary school. Now I'm working, but always looking back at secondary school and beyond. It's just I'm a nostalgia junkie. Which is why Hogwarts is such a wonderful setting to return to, because obviously I was reading these books again and again and again and again all through those years. So it's a home away from home for me.
So, something that stuck with you.
Always. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this chapter, and we can wrap up now. No closing thoughts. I don't think we've kind of covered this one in thorough detail.
No,
I opened the door for
good.
like, if you have
good.
any closing remarks, make them now. All right.
I think we're good.
Okay, so yeah, I'm ready for, and I still don't have an outro.
Great Jedi 91. Yes, he does. That's it. See you guys later.
Gensur I1 signing off. Good night.
Evan Nova 95. We hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys later. And mischief managed.
Goodbye.
Hogwarts,
No,
Hogwarts,
not again.